I promised my friend Susie Shannon that she would have the first go at it. I also want to welcome Mike Thaler is here, president of PDA California, and Alan Minsky is here, and he's the president of Progressive Democrats of America, and he will be speaking shortly, as will Joel Segal, Harvey Wasserman, Jodie Evans. So we're giving each of you about 3 minutes to speak, 3 to 4 minutes, and then we'll have you make comments on each other's comments, and then we'll open it up to everybody. How's that sound? Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. So Susie, you're on.
Great. Hi, everyone. So in case you don't know, I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee. I'm a diehard progressive. I'm the only Bernie Sanders delegate to get elected in 2016. Come from the very left progressive, legitimate wing of the Democratic Party. So I think it's very clear what was happening tonight. So Trump had one play, which was basically to discredit the Obama administration, everything that happened, to basically try to get Biden to move away from his base by discrediting what he called the radical left, which is basically us. I mean, we as progressives should be really furious with this debate. You know, for Trump to go after protesters, for him to be, you know, calling out basically law enforcement, you know, and all of his endorsements, and basically stating, you know, that Biden doesn't have any law enforcement endorsements and that he's the law and order president, right? Which is what we see time and time again from Republicans. But at the same time, trying to get Biden to discredit the left, which I think didn't really work. I mean, the left was not very much, like progressives were not really embraced by Biden. I think point by point, and I think with every one of the 6 issues that we were talking about, that was the case. I think that there was not a lot of substance in this debate for people who are living at or below the poverty level, or for the 30 to 40 million people in this country who are facing eviction right now, or the millions of people who are unemployed. There wasn't really a lot for that. You know, we need somebody like FDR right now to come in, and we, you know, need a real plan to bring this economy back. I think that Biden was trying his best to articulate that. I don't think it necessarily came across. There was no chicken in every pot, you know, type of scenario that was brought forward by either candidate. But I think we have to see how dangerous Trump is for the left, especially when he is going after the left, especially when he is going after Black Lives Matter, when he is going after protesters, when he is, you know, trying to basically say that how he handled Portland was exactly the right thing to do. All of this is very dangerous for us, you know, and I'm sure that many people, you know, saw the article that they were planning to use that heat ray against protesters. So for us, we need to do what we can, I think, both to articulate to progressives, because they have our ear, how important it is to go out and vote. We also need to articulate to people who are really suffering right now. That, I mean, I think that one good moment that Biden had, maybe he had many, but the one where I thought he was kind of going down the right path was that he said, you know, he doesn't like Irish Catholics like me, and he doesn't like people who have no money. And I think that's more along the lines of where we need to go. So we need to articulate, particularly to people in the Midwest, who, you know, even for people who live in poverty, you know, that 12% of Obama voters from 2012 who voted for Trump, we need to bring them back, and we need to convince them that they are much better off with the Democratic president than Joe Biden. We need to articulate the fact that, you know, for all these states, and if you see like the entire debate, really, a lot of swing states were mentioned, right? Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, There was a lot of talking about, you know, Philadelphia at the end. So these are the places where it's going to be tough. And if we're not articulating to people whose, you know, families may have been impacted by some of these bad trade agreements, which is how, you know, Trump won some of these swing districts, if we can't articulate to low-income folks who are set to potentially, you know, lose their health care, how important this is, we're not even going to recognize this country. I mean, I'm already not recognizing it, but when you look at 30 to 40 million people right now who are set for eviction, when you look at how many people don't have any health care, and that could potentially get worse if this administration gets another 4 years, we are facing probably the worst of what's coming. I mean, we are facing another depression. And, you know, if we don't have SDR style programs coming forward, I just don't know how we're going to get out of this. And like I said, if we give, you know, any kind of mandate for another 4 years, you know, to Donald Trump again, I don't know where this country is going to go. So there was literally like no mention of poverty tonight, with the one exception, I think, of Biden talking about people who are on Medicaid and, you know, basically saying that Trump doesn't like people without money, and maybe sort of, you know, the numbers of people who would get thrown off of health insurance. So we need to do a better job on that. I think we all do as progressives. We need to be defending our point of view. We can't let inaccuracies, you know, particularly about the public option. I mean, obviously I support Medicare for all, but we don't want the other side, you know, trying to whittle away what little we've got, which is the public option. So I hope that everybody, you know, I'm really interested in like hearing what people have to say, but I really think this fight is going to happen at the lower income levels. I think it's going to happen more, you know, in states like Pennsylvania, in the Midwest, where people are hurting, but they, you know, they're basically going to listen to or look for whoever is going to help their family, whoever's going to help them put food on the table, whoever's going to bring jobs back. And so we really need to articulate that. I think, unfortunately, I think this was the most important debate because people have their ballots already. A lot of people have them. They're getting them next week. If you live in California, I just want to tell you that over half of the voters are going to be voting within a few days of getting their ballot, and definitely within 1 week. We are constantly polling on this, so we know that this is happening. I don't know if this debate will change anyone's mind, because there's a very, I think, small percentage of people right now who haven't made up their mind. But I think we need to be talking to low-income folks, and I think we need to be making that case on why it is that they absolutely must be a Democrat, or we are facing, you know, a depression that will be, you know, very close to what we faced in the 1930s. And it's going to require somebody really amazing to come in and put everything back together again. But I saw tonight as a huge assault against progressives by Donald Trump, and I think that we need to fight back.
Thank you, Susie. Okay. I know, Joel, I know you're waiting. Let me just, Alan Minsky, do you have to leave in a minute? Do we need to have you next? Where's the president of PDA? Are you here?
I am. There's David Feldman, the show that I'm going to be on with a whole group of different podcasts. Doesn't need me at least until the bottom of the hour. If Joel wants to go first because he's on the East Coast, well, you know, I'll throw to Joel, and then I'll take, as it were, cede my time to the great Joel Segal, and then I'll come back. But I just want to say, you know, it is a matter of, thank you for that, Susie, and a matter of trying to collect thoughts and get something constructive out of that politically, which I think is important, because I think that was a phenomenal historical event for, you know, in terms of signifying the decay of the American political system, that something like that is where public political discourse is at this point, and that Donald Trump is viewed by such a large portion of the population as the legitimate president, does speak volumes. And while I'm going to come back after Joel, and I'll come up with something more constructive. And this is only said partly tongue in cheek, but America has a global empire, and it's of course run on petroleum. And the Romans had an empire, and they had a republic, and then there was a political crisis, and then there was an empire. And at least 2 of the first 5 Roman emperors were batshit crazy. And by the way, if anybody doesn't like cursing, I think I have to curse. I don't have a drink to have.
If you don't like cursing, you can log off.
Please, that was crazy. It is a tragedy that American political discourse is degenerated to that degree. Even on that level, I don't know how American society, given where the Republican Party comes back, if it remains, this 2-party system, and that's the second party. But Nero and Caligula were batshit crazy, and the empire went on for another 200 years. Not exactly like having, this kind of crazy leader negates savage empires, like the Roman Empire and like a reactionary American empire could be. There, that's a sober thought, isn't it? Joel Segal, take it away. I'll collect my thoughts more constructively after Joel.
All right, thank you.
I was enjoying your excursion into the emperors. Emperor Dorothy, you're a Menschkeit for Lashana Tova for all the Jewish people and non-Jewish people out there. Dorothy, thanks for doing this. I have to just say right on to what Susie Shannon said. I don't really have much to add to that. I think she said it all. I'll just add 2 or 3 quick points. Number one, I thought on climate change, I really think Biden did a hell of a job in terms of making the point that our world is on edge. We don't have much time. We really have to deal with climate change. And I thought that Trump looked like a complete idiot and a buffoon that he is.
We're going to let Russell Greene talk about climate change in a little bit because he's here.
Right. And he is the right person to talk about climate change. Number 2, as someone who is a co-founder of the PDA and worked in Congress on, working with Tim Carpenter and the Progressive Democrats of America, when it was actually the Progressive Caucus was actually very hostile to me and Mr. Conner's staff, because I was doing everything I could to organize the movement and to push the Democratic Party to the left. And it was not easy, but I have to admit, it was a lot of fun trying to, being a guerrilla warfare fighter, a little radical up there. And the fact that Trump kept bashing the left made me realize that we really did our job. We've done our job, man. From single payer to the Green New Deal. And I'm so proud of the Progressive Democrats of America and Bernie and Susie and Russell, because I never thought I would ever even see the day where I would hear Medicare for all, or Green New Deal. And I would say the last point I want to make is I feel like Trump is so backed in the corner now that he's even more ridiculous sounding than he ever has been. And I think it was apparent by the way he kept interrupting. In terms of my analysis of Joe Biden, 2 things. He has to put forward a COVID-19 New Deal, and it has to be strong, that deals with making sure that every family stays in their house, no one's evicted, people have expedited food stamps, small businesses are kept afloat, universities which feel financial pressure, because we're not really looking at a macroeconomic kind of a Keynesian policy or a New Deal policy of using the federal government to keep the economy afloat because of a lot of intellectual confusion, as Paul Krugman would say, from both Democrats and Republicans. And he has to do that to get millions of people otherwise who will be out of work and in the streets. And Dennis Kucinich was talking about this a few weeks ago. We were talking about what's the Democratic Party strategy. And he said, Joel, a roof over everyone's head and food on the table and your utilities on during COVID-19. I think Dennis is right. I also didn't really hear anything from Biden about programs that are going to really excite Black and brown voters and young people. If Biden wants to win by that 1 or 2% in swing districts or swing states like North Carolina, he has to do that. He hasn't met that threshold. And I'm going to close by saying that I think PDA needs to draft a letter. I'm a revolutionary, but I'm more of a solutionary. I think PDA needs to draft a letter signed by as many organizations as we can. It's got to go to Perez, Pelosi, and Schumer, and to the Biden campaign that says if Biden does not come out stronger for universal health care, for a COVID-19 plan, for immigration reform, for changes in our criminal justice system and our policing system, a Jobs for All program as put forward in HR 1000 by Frederica Wilson, first introduced by John Conyers, authored by myself and many other great, people. There has to be that emphasis on Black and brown voters, especially immigration reform, a path to citizenship. I'm very worried about the Biden campaign and who's going to advise them. I think that we're going to have to put pressure on, I'll use the word corporate Democrats, because that is what most of them are. We're going to have to kick ass and unify under sort of a strategy of getting Biden elected. And then if Biden and Harris get elected, push them as far to the left as we can, just as we did Obamacare through single payer, which gave birth to Obamacare. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I drank 12 beers during the debate because Trump was getting very angry. So I'm sorry if I slurred my speech. No, I don't drink.
Thank you, Joel. Maybe someone also could address, I noticed that we kept talking about the economy. We never once mentioned the $600 a week or getting any kind of supplemental money or even unemployment insurance to the people who've been laid off. That I kept waiting for him to say that, and he kept saying PPE.
Right.
So maybe Alan, you could address that.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll try to spin what I take out of this. First of all, right off the top, many times, many times, and I'm sure many people in this Zoom call, in this Zoom room, is that what this is called? Thought, wow, what if that was Bernie up there?
Yeah.
And, Bernie just has the kind of gravitas and Brooklyn barkiness that would have commanded the moment that I don't think Joe Biden has in his current presence. And quite frankly, I'll be frank, and we're all family here, so don't trumpet this out to the rest of the world as me speaking ill of Joe Biden. I think where Joe Biden found himself was very difficult, and we all know where Joe Biden is in terms of this wasn't Joe Biden from the 80s, Joe Biden from the 90s or the noughts. This guy is not getting out of third gear very often. He was very impressive in the Bernie Sanders debate, and I think he was lifted by Sanders and Sanders' clear focus on policy. I have to say I don't know that he could have addressed policy constructively in the 2 minutes that was agreed upon in advance where he wouldn't be interrupted. And maybe that's a strategy he can adopt for the next debate. Though, as Susie says, many people will have voted. Very hard to get constructive policy laid out in that kind of environment. And so, I think this was a spectacle that was about the chaos of Donald Trump, the unconstructive governance, the reality of an executive branch of the federal government that has been completely chaotic. And clearly, I think if there was a strategy to Trump, what Trump was doing is he was trying to addle Biden because of the idea that Biden isn't that sharp. And I don't think Biden responded to it that well. I don't think Biden did that good a job. I don't think he was adequately prepared for that as a tactic that Trump was going to pursue. Having said that, I do expect, and I don't know what they'll do, the press, but I expect they'll be rather kind to Biden. In other words, I don't think this is as much of a disaster. I don't think it's good for the Biden campaign. It certainly wasn't a victory or a knockout blow. It certainly was Trump as the alpha character, like, a misbehaving infant sorry to be ageist, a misbehaving infant in the sandbox, but dominating the environment, dominating Wallace, dominating Biden, trying to slip his words in always so he would addle Biden was, I think, his tactic that he adopted. Again, I don't know what goes on in the inner circle of Trump land. I'm not one of these, Kremlin watchers per the Trump White House, like being a Kremlin watcher. What's the inner mechanisms Who's giving him counsel? Was this something he just came up on his own because nobody can tell him what to do, et cetera? But I thought that was the tactic. And I think here's the talking point that comes out of it. Joe Biden wants to try to return the executive branch of the federal government to being a responsible governing institution. You know, left, right, was there ideological cohesion to Biden? Yeah, probably right around mainstream neoliberalism. I'm sorry, I didn't see anything. I do agree that on climate, he actually had a volley for about 45 seconds that was mildly appealing, only in that it was one of the sort of uninterrupted 45 seconds where he got to lay out any kind of policy at all. But often is not when he did lay out policy in 45 seconds uninterrupted or could focus himself around all the chaos. I didn't think he was particularly painting the left, a more progressive vision of what came out of the Democratic DNC convention. I thought it was a slightly more conservative vision than what came out of the DNC convention. All the things that Joel said were missing, the absence of poverty, and the absence of the way that people were struggling. You know, this talking point that we had a booming economy before, imagine Bernie Sanders responding to that we had a booming economy. Remember, Bernie was running on an economic populist message before COVID-19, before the collapse of the economy in COVID-19, and he was persuading all of us, and we all were absolutely feeling confident that had he been able to bring that message to a presidential debate against Donald Trump, that he would have won the day. So I think the thing about Biden, because we all have to defeat Trump, and so what our work is about in the next 5 weeks is, by the way, people write about cutting off the mics, and that's a big talking point on the media as I picked it up, that apparently there's no way that they would have agreed to it, either of them, had they had the option of the moderator cutting off the mic. So that's sort of a non-starter in terms of what Chris Wallace could have done. But I do think this was an exemplary moment in which, do we continue with chaos, or do we have Joe Biden return as somebody who is definitely respectful of the Constitution, the constitutional republic, Republican democracy of the United States of America, and a federal government that will get things done that will be of use value to people. And I think that's a great talking point. But really, I think coming off this, the main talking point is that's chaos. He is the continuation of chaos, and I am responsible governance, and I will be, you know, just a sane president. And that's the way I think this spectacle played out. I wish I could be more substantive on the policy components of it, but those were drowned out in a bunch of just noise. It's great to see so many people I want to shout out, by the way. Yeah, tons of it.
Dorothy, can I jump in?
I'm done. So
I was gonna, go to a woman.
Okay, yeah.
Is Jodie here?
I'm here.
Jodie Evans, there we go. Jodie, tell us what you think. Jodie Evans, as you know, is founder of Code Pink along with Medea Benjamin, and she is an incredible activist for peace and an inspiration to all of us. So Jodie, take it away.
Thanks, and I also ran 3 presidential campaigns. So
she's the inside knowledge of how these things work. From Jerry Brown and who else?
All 3, 76, 80, and 92.
All right.
So, yeah, I guess I look at debates a little differently, because people don't look to them really for policy as much as to look at that emotional feel of leadership and who are you going to trust and what do you feel. And, besides it being a little bit like Real Housewives, I started to think about it as wrestling, because that's kind of the game it felt like Trump was playing. And in wrestling, it's about the status of dominance, and it's about who's up and who's down, and that the stated rules are there to be broken, and it's not, it's winning at all costs, and cheating and subjugating is what it's about, and unraveling culture and the service of a victory. So I think if we look at, who spoke to whose audience, he was a white supremacist. He, said, let's go back to the founding principles of this country, which are racist and genocide and white supremacy. He wasn't ashamed of that. He was asked to denounce white supremacy. He would not. But then you're on the Biden side. He's being called a socialist, but he's not standing up for Medicare for all. He's He said he's not for the Green New Deal. He's not really talking about the issues of the people. So from a person who's in the streets with folks all day, and especially young people, I felt it was like, there's not anything there for them. And that was what was hard for me, is that, my favorite thing that Biden did was call Trump a racist, but it was obvious to anybody who's in the streets and as a young person that's true. It was really the best kind of flip into like something, but it wasn't like he said it under his breath and barely, instead of, you're a freaking racist, like it didn't, I too desired to see Bernie like slam him down in that moment. And it reminded me of the way he used to put his hands on, behind Hillary, the hovering and all of that. It was there. He was winning on the wrestling metaphor. Even he was beating the moderator. It was just like, if somebody's looking for someone who like takes control and carries it through in his way till the end, he did. And I don't know. I was fantasizing Bernie in some of those moments, even that like racist moments, like Bernie would have made you feel, taste, and experience racist instead of like under the breath, like barely. So in the concerns of, yes, the China bashing, yes, this left bashing and socialism bashing, not good, but we didn't, from our side, Biden's not there to lift it up for those who need some encouragement to get in the street. That's just not what I saw happening, which is concerning. And that's why I feel like, we have to also be out there. Yes, they're both evil. Yes, they're not the answer, but one regime is a lot easier to change than the other. And that's why, you have to get out and vote for Biden, because that's the shit show. It's a reality television show. And I agree with the analogy to Rome. After he lost the, I actually closed down the campaign in 92. I said, yeah, this is the end of the American empire. It will take 75 years like Rome, and it will be ungovernable. And if that was the right, there we are looking at this shit show of America, and it's not pretty.
Thanks, Jodie. Well, thanks for that. We have our work cut out for us.
Very good.
I am so glad that we're all here together tonight. I don't know if I could have dealt with this without you guys.
Really.
So Harvey has to speak next, and then after that, we'll have Deana and then Russell. Okay.
Okay.
Harvey.
Jodie, that was wonderful. Thank you. And Alan and Joel. I think what we've seen tonight is the face of American fascism. This really was a fascist performance by Donald Trump. He was tan, he was in his suit, and Joe Biden wasn't exactly feeble, but he did not have the force of presence to deal with Trump. And if you had turned off the volume, you would have seen that Trump had just walked all over him. The wrestling analogy is exactly right. And the one substantive thing that Biden did, and it came right at the beginning, was healthcare. And he did a reasonable job of defending Obamacare and making it clear that Trump is going to destroy it. And in most people, the polls are showing that that's the number one issue in people's minds. So in the first 5 or 10 minutes, Biden did hold his own, and then it was all Trump. And Trump was a monster. And I think what we have to understand, and Jodie, both of you, Alan and Jodie, mentioned the end of empire. Trump karmically, and don't want to get too woo-woo here, but this is historic. Trump is the sum total of all the dictators that the United States has put in power in other third world countries. Actually, we're becoming a third world country. But if you think of Pinochet, Somoza, Suharto, Mobutu, all the horrible gangster, torturers, murderers, and thieves that we have imposed on other people, they're all summed up in Donald Trump. And what we have to do as a country is really deal with the karma of this. You know, it's a horrible thing to see this guy being Adolf Hitler on television, which is who he was tonight. That could have been a TV performance that Hitler would have done, because it was nothing had to be true. Didn't matter if anything was true. All that mattered was that he run all over this old man and the other. I hate to be ageist, but I'm 74, and he ran all over Biden. Once the first piece of substance got out, which was actually good for the Democrats and for the progressives to talk about healthcare, but once that was over, it was all Trump. And he completely dominated. Now, whether he won anybody over is another story. But this was a historic moment. We have never seen in any presidential debate any kind of Reichstag performance like we saw tonight. And I think we really have to face that reality. There's no doubt that Bernie could have stood him down. There's no doubt that Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris could have stood him down, but not Joe Biden. And so, you know, that's what we're looking at. And Joe Biden, this election is going to be decided by two things. Number one is the turnout of young voters. Now, I saw one thing that was hopeful today. There is clearly now a demographic shift in poll workers because of the COVID, and we knew this was going to happen, but it hasn't really been felt. Because of the COVID, older poll workers who have historically worked the polls are not coming out, and we're finally seeing movement among millennials to come out and be poll workers. And this is absolutely essential that this transition be made. And we have to work on that. You know, I'm doing this weekly Zoom call on election protection, and there's all this, you know, jockeying for those people in the middle, those Republicans and Democrats who are on the fence. This election has to be decided by the millennials. And Joe Biden is doing nothing. The Democrats are doing nothing to bring out young people. He has not mentioned abolishing student debt. He's not mentioned anything that's going to appeal. He backed off from the Green New Deal. There is no appeal by the corporate Democrats to millennials. 86 million millennials, 10 million more than there were baby boomers. And that's where the election will be decided on how many millennials come out and vote, and then how many of them come out and protect the election. Now, I was glad there was dialogue at the end there about actual election protection. Of course, Biden got it wrong because not all states are requiring an affidavit. And, you know, the Democrat, we're getting no help that I can tell, and Joel's been on with these calls, and Alan, in terms of protecting the election. It is extremely complicated. It varies from state to state, and it is where we have to be. And, you know, I'm glad that the Democrats are maybe a little bit aware of it. And one thing Trump did do, I think, is scare the hell out of anybody who's paying attention to election protection, because he made it clear he intends to steal this thing. And he didn't back off from his position, and I'm glad he didn't, because anybody watching that has to understand what the stakes are involved here in terms of protecting the actual vote. No matter what the polls show, they can still steal it with the electronic Zoom, with electronic ballot imaging, by throwing out ballots within the polls. All the stuff that we've been seeing since 2000, we're seeing in spades again. And so we have got to protect this election. And, you know, it's eye-rolling stuff, but it's absolutely critical. And we need the millennials to do that. So I don't see anything out of the first, in policy, I don't think anything was significant after the first minute or two when he talked about healthcare. In terms of theatrics, you know, we're looking at the Gestapo here. This guy, it was very clear, no mistaking what Donald Trump is about. How that's going to play out in the public, I don't know. But, you know, we can argue about Biden's policies and all that other stuff, but he was not physically or mentally strong enough to stand up to this guy, and somebody's going to have to be. So that's, and again, it's the karma of all the third world dictators. I really am serious. I think we need to do some kind of exorcism and understand that, look, this Trump is what Pinochet and Somoza and the Shah and all the other horrible nightmares that we've put in power around the world. This is our karma coming back, and we have to make sure that everybody understands that. So there you go. Thank you very much. And thank you for doing this, Dorothy, and thank you.
Thank you for participating. We were expecting Marcy Winograd, and she will not be, well, she'll be here. She said she could come in at 8:30, but she's taking care of her grandson. So Deana Igelsrud offered to step in for Marcy. So Deana, are you here?
I am here. Hello.
All right, so Deana is a member of the California Democratic Party Executive Committee. She's also Executive Board, and she's also on the head of our Legislative Action Committee here in LA and on the Legislative Action Committee of the state, which gives her a little bit of power to try to get support for good legislation and hopefully soon opposition for bad legislation.
Yep. I also have a background in radio, television, broadcast journalism. So that's what I graduated in. I went to San Francisco State. I will say that today, if I had to sum up the debate, it was showman versus statesman. I think people talking about Trump and the wrestling metaphor is one way to look at it. But if you've ever, and for the record, I am a hardcore progressive, but I'm going to talk about what Trump did right, because this is what we need to learn from. This is, I feel like if you've ever watched any episode of The Apprentice and you've sat in and watched one of his boardroom scenarios, he relishes the people who fight. That's what he does. This was classic Trump boardroom. That's all this was, which is where he was expecting Biden to reach up and fight back at him. And Biden was trying to be a statesman. Biden was trying to play by the rules. And I think he was trying to play presidential. I don't think it played well on television to people. I just kept watching people on social media reading through it going, this is a shit show. I'm turning off. I'm not going to watch this. And all the Trump supporters on my feed loved him. They thought he was awesome. He completely motivated his base. He said all the things they wanted to hear. He didn't tell the Proud Boys to stand down. He didn't tell supremacists to stand down. He told them to stand by. You know, he did exactly what he needed to do to motivate his base. I think Biden needed to get a little bit more mad dad. What I saw up there was a dad who has 3 kids screaming at him and he didn't know how to deal with it. And he was like the nice dad, and the mom had to come in and, you know, scold the kids. Biden was just too nice to him. I mean, I think that the meme that you already see that's going around out there is the one time he actually told him to shut up. Right? I mean, that's already a meme that was circulating by the end of the debate. I think that in terms of, well, we already know 86% of the voters have already decided who they're going to vote for. So there's not a whole lot of undecideds. I don't know if Trump necessarily won over the undecideds. He just looked like a crazy person on the side of the stage, but he definitely motivated his base. I think it's going to be up to us to make sure to motivate the regular voters, because Biden's going to need as much help as possible. I think that I took a couple notes here. Let me look through my thing. But I think that I had a plan to drink cocktails watching this, and I ended up filling in here, so I didn't get to drink, and it would have been a lot more enjoyable watching the debate had I been drinking. But I will say that, you know, I think regarding this specific election, Trump is trying to declare a failed election already. I mean, let's be real about that. I mean, he basically said that he is not, when they asked him if he wouldn't declare victory and he wouldn't tell his people to commit violence after the election, he wouldn't do any of that, right? He specifically said, this is not going to end well, right? I mean, he is basically going to go after any ballots that aren't received by election day. These are all the things that he told us right there in the debate tonight. And I think we need to take him seriously. So one thing I noted was that he specifically talked about West Virginia and Pennsylvania ballots. And I know that Dorothy shared the article about the different scenarios where it may come up in Congress. He's going to take it to court. We should already plan on that. And I think if somehow, I don't know how this is going to happen, but if by some miracle we actually managed to get Biden in, and he became president, I think it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to ride the media as intensely as we possibly can to not give screen time to Donald Trump when he's out of office. I mean, when Obama won, we got Sarah Palin on TV for 6 months, just riding Obama. I also think we're gonna have to ride Biden if he somehow magically gets in, to push him on Medicare for all, to push him on a Green New Deal, to push him on all the things that we actually want. So I guess the best metaphor I've been finding when talking to progressives about this is that politicians are like public transit. A new one comes along every 15 minutes. You at least want to get on the one headed downtown, not the one headed out to the junkyard in the wrong direction. And you can get off and transfer, you can change, you can upgrade your buses, but I guess that's my short little metaphor on it. So for what that's worth.
Thank you, Deana. You know, I couldn't understand why you couldn't even hear Biden talk. Am I the only one? He sounded like he was whispering to me. I didn't, maybe, I don't know. Has he got a sore throat? All right, enough of me. We're on to Russell Greene. Russell is PDA's environmental guru, and he's been working hard to try to make a Green New Deal happen. And maybe the only highlight for me of the debate was the few seconds that that Biden got to talk about the environment. Now, Russell, are you still here with us?
I'm here, and
Great.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm having some connectivity issues, so if for any reason I become unstable, please tell me in the chat, and I'll just turn off my video and correct that. So I think all of the speakers have done a great job, Deana. Thank you for that. Susie, Joel, Alan, Jodie, and Sluggo, exactly as I experienced it in terms of fascist distillation. I just am watching the emails of many of the climate groups that we work with, and Sunrise, the group that is most directly responsible for the popularization of the Green New Deal, says Trump is a fascist. That's their tweet lead, meaning they knew that he was going to have to say no to the Green New Deal or some version of that. And Biden's plan outlines the Green New Deal as a conceptual frame, but as a political liability, that's a problem for him in terms of winning. So we already knew that. I think that it was amazing that Chris Wallace asked the question the way he did, and he continued to hold Trump accountable to his remarkably stupid answer of immaculate water and immaculate air, which we have heard him say from the beginning. So in my view, in terms of who is potentially listening, who's going to vote on climate, and we know from the Yale report and other reports that that's a large percentage of America, young and old, that they heard somebody who knows nothing about the environment compared to somebody who is being able to connect the idea of a growing America, an economy and jobs in a way that was coherent. So I think we win there. I also, whether or not we can turn that into people going to the polls, that's a big question and something that PDA is going to take up Friday night when we start our all hands on deck effort to try to take this next 5 weeks. You know, there's 1,000 people in PDA who are always doing this work. And here you are tonight, 100 of you that I see all of the time, remarkable activists. But we have hundreds of thousands of members. And I think many of them are sitting there unsure of what to do next. And we have a plan. Alan and Steve Cobbled and many of us have done some very, very detailed strategic analysis. We'll tell you more about it on Friday. But get every person you know in PDA and otherwise to join us or join another group, because we're not going to lose this. This is the call to action of our lifetimes. We're not going to work on climate until we really get Biden elected. We didn't expect that Biden would be our candidate. We know that Sanders was the person to lead us through the climate emergency, but it's going to be Biden and Harris for the next 12 or 16 years if we're lucky. Pardon me, 8 or 16 years. So we have to make that happen. And then once we get him elected, we're going to have to turn him into the president that FDR was in the last century on climate. And I think, I don't know if you watched the speech he gave on the 14th, but it was a pretty remarkable speech. And if you listen closely to what he's saying, and if we hold him accountable to what he's saying, and if what he's signaling in that speech is what he's intending to do, and we can build the progressive movement to support him, and work on legislative level, city, state, national, and at the executive level, we will be able to start to move this. We don't have a choice. We don't have that much time. This notion of 12 years, that was 2 years ago. And that was from a 1.5 degree special report out of the IPCC, which is a conservative body. The other day, New York, during Climate Week, there was a time clock that went up that talked about 7 years. Did you see that? The climate clock that's counting down, it's for a week. 7 years. And that's, again, conservative. So in order to really keep us from collapse, we in the Democratic Party have to move beyond what's our comfort zone. Because what Biden's proposing, as good as it is compared to anything the Republicans are proposing, is nowhere close to the $16.9 trillion plan that Bernie was proposing. However, we're part of that conversation because of the success of Sunrise and PDA and many of our partners. We have a potential there. So my sense is let's prevent fascism, make sure we stay calm, do not escalate any of this, but stay strong and calm and insistent on what we're going to do. Harvey and Joel are doing a brilliant job in election integrity with Mimi. Everybody needs to join in now. All hands on deck. This is the 5 weeks of our lifetimes, and I'm confident that we will find our way through.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, so have we moved through our panel? Did I forget anybody? Okay, so did any of the panelists have a question for another panelist before we open it wide up? Open. No? Okay, if you have a question or you want to make a comment, can you please raise your electronic hand? Okay, so let's go to Ruth Strauss. Ruth Strauss? Are you
Yeah,
there?
hi. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for organizing this, Dorothy. I went to the meeting that was before the debates, and something that was really important that was brought up is that, and I had no idea there were that many. I knew they were out there, but I didn't know how many. There are thousands and thousands of Bernie supporters who either want to vote Green or sit this out. And the person that was on, I think his name is Dan from Roots Action, they really want to be calling and texting those people that they need to not sit it out. They need to not vote Green. We have got to get Trump out, and then, we can do what we have to do. And so there's a website called Seed the Vote, which has, some projects on it, but Roots Action, this person, Dan at Roots Action, or just go to Roots Action. There's some sign up things, but I listen to Jimmy Dore because the guy who's on his show is such a riot. He does these great imitations, but Jimmy Dore has been bashing Bernie, before even, Bernie got out of the race. He was bashing him. Now he's bashing Biden, and it's really scary. So anyway, that's my point. We need to not forget about the people who are Bernie supporters, which I was one, and which I think all of us here were, but we have to get those people who are doing, protesting by not voting or by doing a Green. We've got to get them, going to this, basically.
Dorothy, if I can answer that just for everybody so they can hear, because not everybody might be reading the chat. We will definitely get the Roots Action Green specific outreach. They're part of the coalition United Against Trump that PDA is a part of. And Ruth, if you don't hear about it within a week, certainly contact me at alan@pdamerica.org. We should be sharing that through our emails.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
And Norman sent me an email about his phone bank, and I'll send that to the people who are on my list. I can send that to you, Alan, and you can get that out quickly.
On that front, we have phone banking all around the country. And so we are really honing in on the presidential election in North Carolina and Arizona, and then of course through Mike Fox in Florida. And one of the reasons we're really honing in on those 3 states, not to diminish Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. Those are the top 6 swing states. This is, of course, our ridiculous election system where only those states ultimately are really going to matter. because if they win North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona, the Democrats, Joe Biden, that avoids the Civil War setup that could occur because Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are going to count their votes late. North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona are going to count their votes on election day. So that's enough electoral votes. In fact, just North Carolina and Florida are in 2 East Coast states. So they'll report earlier, enough electoral votes that they would have put Hillary Clinton over the top last time. So we're going to be having a lot of concentration on those states, and we will have an absolute maximum of ways to plug people in to call those states to reach likely Democratic voters and try to get them out to the polls.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, Timothy Bruning. Timothy, your hand is up. Where are you? There you are. You're muted. Okay, you're unmuted now. Okay, go ahead, Timothy.
I think that Biden should say, Americans of all colors unite to support health coverage for all, to fight COVID-19, to fight climate change, to reduce wealth inequality, to bring about racial justice, to end police brutality, to provide non-police alternatives to deal with mental health and other non-criminal emergencies, and to bring about world peace. Should I add anything to that speech?
Okay, world peace sounds good to me. Robin Crop. Robin Crop?
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask about something I heard at the very beginning of the debate. It was the very first sentence when Trump said, "We won the election, and therefore we have the right to appoint all the judges and the Supreme Court people." And I'm thinking to myself, well, what's Biden going to say? Well, Biden didn't say anything, and I kept yelling at him, please, Biden, say something, because Obama won his election, and Mitch McConnell blocked every federal judge, request, and also the Supreme Court seat. What Biden should have said right then is we were blocked. And so from the beginning, I wanted Biden to be stronger. And I'm wondering if we need to send a message to his campaign that he has the right to say that we were cheated on the judges, that we were cheated on the Supreme Court situation. Now, if Trump sends the vote decision to the Supreme Court, what I also want to ask about is I've been seeing news about mail being dumped in parking lots in Glendale, et cetera, and Trump saying, oh, in the wastebasket here and there. What I want to know is whether they're planting this. They're planting it to look like the mail is being messed up. So they plant in a parking lot, or they plant this and they plant that. And so, hey, we take it to the Supreme Court because the mail's been showing up all over the place. But those are kind of my first 2 comments I want to ask. How come Biden didn't jump on it in terms of saying, well, we had the election and you didn't allow us any of the judges? So that should have been the first point. And the second thing I want to ask about, are they going to mess with the mail showing up all over the place?
Yeah, I noticed that too, that he didn't say that we didn't appoint that Obama nominated judges and Biden wouldn't give them hearings. I don't know who did his debate prep, Biden, but I think he was poorly prepared.
It was a testimony to a guy, Trump, being willing to say anything and not be contradicted. Obviously, the reason there were over 120 vacancies, he was accusing Obama of negligence for not filling judicial seats that he was prevented from filling by Mitch McConnell. And Biden never came back at him.
He never said
It's mind-boggling.
That. Yeah.
And you have to understand, I think the most critical thing we're facing in this election now is Trump's the strategy, the Republican strategy of rendering the entire election into utter chaos. It's chaos that they're seeking. Now we want people to, we are asking people to vote early. But the first thing you need to do, voting by mail, if you get a ballot in the mail, God love you, fill it out and walk it in. But don't trust the mail to get it back. And this is a self-fulfilling prophecy on the part of a fascist operation here. They know exactly what they're doing by seeding as much chaos and as much doubt as they possibly can. So we have to hold on in this storm, get young people in, millennials in, to work the polls. If you get a ballot in the mail, walk it in if you can. There are places in this country where, you know, the election varies with every different precinct. You cannot be a poll worker generally in a precinct where you don't live. You can be a poll monitor, but you have to be native to the precinct you work.
I don't believe that's true. In LA, they send people all over.
Yes, but that's not true in other states. So it's varying everywhere. It's incredibly complex by design. So what we saw tonight was a Hitlerian figure who is, you know, blaming chaos for a bad election when in fact he's creating the chaos. And what we do every week, 90 minutes, is try and sort through it. And that's we have to pay very close attention. And please get millennials in to work the polls.
All right, thanks, Harvey. Beth Angel.
Hi, just unmuted myself. So I just wanted a quick comment on the comment that we might have, or we're going to have Biden and Harris for 8 or 16 years. I don't want that to happen. I think what our goal should be is we need to start building the bench so that we can get some really true progressives in the White House, the Senate, and the House. Don't let the corporate Democrats continue to run our government, because they're not a whole lot better than the Republicans, unfortunately. Because we still have bad tax policy. We have bad climate policy. The corporate Democrats are not going to give us the things that the people need. And I just wish that we concentrate more on trying to build our bench, building more people running for office at the local, state, and national level, so we can get some real people's candidates in there. Like we got AOC, Ilhan, Rashida, Ayanna, and we got new people coming in, Jamal Bowman, and et cetera. So let's not forget that whole part of our goal as being PDA and all the other groups that are working on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Our James Carmody.
Thank you, Dorothy. I agree with Robin in that we have a need to hold the Republicans and Trump accountable for the atrocious records on behalf of the American people. For example, Trump actually dropped the name of Merrick Garland, and Biden didn't hold him accountable or his party accountable for that, despite the hypocrisy of a 8 to 9 month delay, whereas we only have 2 months to this election, yet we're arresting a new appointee right away. And I think that Biden can do strong talking points, and we can do strong phone banking and other outreach by emphasizing Trump's negatives, because Biden's not got too much to accentuate, but Trump's got a lot of negatives we can accentuate, like his shutdown of the government in 2018 to 2019, or his failure to make a border wall that we know is always nonsense, and we knew it was nonsense from the beginning, and now we can finally validate
My video
that.
has stopped. Your video is stopped?
I wanted to say that we can finally validate our long-standing opposition to it by showing that this liar couldn't even get his basic promise done. So I think that's our strongest point, is to accentuate Trump's negatives.
Thank you. We haven't heard from PDA President or Chair Mike Fowler. Mike, do you have any comments for us?
Well, the only comment I have is I really did notice the lack of a response in the very beginning, over, what we just discussed. I was expecting some kind of response from Biden, and I noticed that many times he didn't respond. I was kind of disappointed in him, but it really broke down into a fight among kindergartners. And I think it's really a sad state that occurred. And I also don't think it's going to change anybody's mind. The people that, we are the people that can't stand Trump, and he did everything to ensure that.
Of what the
And
president,
I don't
the leader of
see
our country, had to say.
a whole lot of
Hey,
change.
wait, who's talking over Mike?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm wrapping up. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'm really glad to see everyone attend this thing. I'm really happy to hear the debate and the discuss among ourselves, more so than the debate that we saw on television. Thank you.
You know, our friend, a lot of us know Jan Goodman, and Jan Goodman's on the call, and I'm wondering if Jan would like to say a few words.
Caring for
There,
patients.
Jan?
Number
Jan?
one was care for patients. They would know pre-existing.
Harvey, is Jan there?
She's not. She's watching this in the other room.
Okay. Does she want to come and talk to us a minute?
I can go get her.
All right.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, here I am. I'll even start the video.
See your picture.
There, now you can even see me. So, and not only can you see me, but we also have a whole collection of people. We have Will, Ryan, and Nancy Naparco, and Mila Reason.
Hi, gang.
We're back to
seeing your picture.
Oh, back to seeing my picture. Okay, hold on a second. Back to seeing my picture. There we go. Okay, all right. So we were just talking about whether or not Biden actually looked fragile, or did he just?
I agreed with Harvey.
Yeah.
Will, you looked at it with the sound off.
Can you hear? Can you hear Will also? Hello. Hello. Can
Yes,
hello?
we can hear him. We can hear him as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Harvey said, Harvey agreed that Will agreed with Harvey about the impression of strength versus fragility. But one point that I made that I think might be worth at least thinking about, you know, turn off those lights right there because it's making a big stars. There we go. Yeah, much better. Okay, no, not that one. That yeah, okay. And I'll even block that light there. Okay. One of the things that I was thinking, we were talking about whether or not Biden should have said something about the judicial appointments that that were blocked, that Obama was unable to make because of being blocked, and it was Trump was acting like this was some big accomplishment of his and a falling down of Obama's. And I want to make the point, and I want to ask other people, you know, that when you're answering so many different things, whether or not whoever is speaking has to like figure out which is the most important thing for me to say, and what do I have enough time to talk about, and did he have time? Did he choose to focus on something else that he might have had more sufficient time to talk about or not? And that's a question that I actually have for other people, is what did he talk about instead of that? Because Trump was babbling on so much and throwing so much shit out there that you couldn't address everything. And that's why we need so much toilet paper in this time, is because Trump is throwing so much shit out there.
Hey, Dorothy, I got to run, Dorothy. So I'm on another podcast, everybody. I got to jump to that. So thank you, and sorry to interrupt, Jan. But bye,
No,
everybody.
that's okay. I'm
Everybody
pretty
come to
much.
our call Friday with Jim Hightower, big PDA organizing meeting. We're going to mobilize everybody to get out there and help support this. I apologize. I have to run. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good to hear from you, Alan. Good to see you.
Likewise, Jan. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dorothy. Bye.
So I want to close just by quoting something that other people appreciated tonight, and that was that so apropos of Trump and all of his bullshit about law and order, that the calling card of fascism is lawlessness under the banner of law and order.
Just leave you with that thought.
Hey, Dorothy, I don't know if you can see, I have my hand up.
And I'm finished, so thank you.
So that's Kathleen.
Where's
Let's hear from
Dorothy?
Kathleen.
Dorothy, you're muted.
Yeah.
Well, Kathleen, just say whichever you're going to say.
Oh,
right,
okay.
so-
I'm sorry Alan just got off because it was kind of addressing some of what he said. During the debate, I got a call from a family member who's in Arizona doing canvassing there. And I hope you can hear me. So anyway, there's a whole group of these people that are out canvassing, and they've been really put at risk, and it's really scary. And I wanted to really ask people for support of people of color that are out there. They've been put in these very white supremacist areas and are going door to door trying to get the vote for Biden. And when they were very traumatized, they've had guns pulled on them. And so I think it's important that those of us that understand the risks that people take doing this
Let me take a
kinds
look,
of
see if I
work
can
in
figure it
different neighborhoods,
Maybe I'll tackle on something
that understand and have their backs. Because and one of the things that I heard these people saying, they were fired because they refused to go out and put themselves at risk, and they were being asked to go individually door to door, not with anybody, a partner. But one of the things that they felt was that they should be going, to people of color's doors and encouraging. And Alan was talking, or somebody was talking about how many people are voting Greene, or feeling disenfranchised. And those are the people that we do need to approach. It's a lost cause to go to a white nationalist store and ask him to vote for Biden. He's not going to vote for Biden. So I would just hope that people would consider this and consider the risk that people that are going to Arizona, North Carolina, and whatever the other state is, and how we can be their voice as well, and what the hell the strategy is, because the organization is a well-known organization that just fired 10 people, threw them out of their housing within like 5 hours of them asking for safety, and that's I'm not going to support a Biden like that, that's for sure. So anyway, it's just we need to do it, and we need to do it within reason to get people to vote and to speak to them. But we really have to be strategic about it and not be going to a bunch of white neighborhoods. I think they've made their mind up. Thanks.
I didn't know that Biden was doing any canvassing. He'd be canvassing in Florida if he wants to canvass.
It's PACs. They're PACs. It's a union
PACs,
PAC.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a lot of them. And basically they said, we'll fire you. We can get plenty of more people in. But they're putting these people at risk. You don't go out at night and say, go one by one, and be a person of color in a white neighborhood where people are going to pull guns on you.
Okay,
It's
thanks
just
a lot.
wrong. Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Kathy. Maybe you could send me an email about it. Maybe I can get it to somebody who can address it. Okay?
yeah, well, I just think all of us need to be thinking of that, because there's other neighborhoods that we could be helping to get the vote to.
Okay. Right.
Indigenous neighborhoods.
Okay.
Other.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. We haven't heard from Mike Goldman. Mike's here. He's the head of the co-chair of PD San Fernando Valley. Mike, you have any comments? You're muted. Your sound's not on. Here, wait.
Yeah, would have liked to have seen Biden be a little stronger. I would have liked to have seen him, as was mentioned earlier, answer the thing about appointing justices, because it was the Republicans that prevented Obama from appointing justices. I think that he could have straddled the comments about, recognizing the political aspects of it. He could have straddled the comments about the attacks of, Biden being controlled by Bernie and the radical and the radical socialists. I think he could have been more positive about them rather than just saying he wasn't part of them. And I know that we didn't have much of a democracy even before Trump, but I think the overriding thing right now is, this Friday night meeting will address it, is we have got to get Trump out of office. I would have liked to see Biden, when they were talking about accepting an election, pointing out that it was the Republicans that are the ones that are trying to rig the elections. They've been doing it for years, going back to at least 2000. They're the ones that commit election fraud. They're the ones that are trying to sabotage the post office. They're the ones that are that are planning all, these 2 or 3 different strategies to create chaos and prevent the electors from, one strategy is preventing the electors from submitting their votes on time. I would like him to say that he will not accept an election that's rigged by the Republicans. If it's fair and if they follow the will of the voters, of course he will. But I think he should have been, he should have left himself open to being able to challenge as well. So those were just some of the thoughts off the top of my head. I mean, it was really hard to watch, but that's what I have to say at this point.
Thanks, Mike. Okay,
David Wright's hand has been up for a while.
Oh, David, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Sorry, everyone. I have to go. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to everyone.
Okay. Bye, Susie. Okay, David Wright.
Thank you. One of the things I have from my background in dealing as a psychiatric nurse, psych tech trained in the Army, was how to deal with people who talk and mutter under their breath. And that's what Trump was doing, a lot of his side talk and challenging of Biden. And
wait, you're muted. Wait.
Somebody muted me again. Okay. So as a psych tech trained in the Army, I learned a long time ago that when you have somebody muttering under their breath and talking and doing that side talk, you stop the entire conversation and put the attention on them and say, if you have, if you're not going to operate within the rules of this conversation correctly and in the rules of this debate, you need to stop and put everybody's attention on it and just say, you got to grow up and you got to act like an adult. You agreed to the rules. You got to shut the hell up and let the other people speak. And that's on the moderator, but that's also on Biden. Biden needed to stop and say, look, this is my time. You have your time. I'll keep my mouth shut for your time. You need to respect my time. And Mr. Moderator, I would like my full time reestablished.
Yeah, he kind of said that a couple of times, but not, I don't know.
Forcefully enough, and he didn't make it stick. You got to make it stick.
And that's what really bothered me, is that his voice was so meek. His voice was so quiet. He sounded like he had a sore throat. You could barely hear him. You had to strain to hear him. That I don't understand. Usually Trump is kind of hoarse and kind of, snorting and weird, but Trump's voice was great. And you couldn't, Biden was just not, I don't know how to describe it. Never heard anybody go to a debate where you couldn't really even hardly hear him. Plus he was stuttering and he was misspeaking. Nobody, Trump was nice enough not to make fun of that, but it was very disturbing to me. Besides the policy situation, the only thing we can hope is that people just didn't like the chaos of Trump, any undecided people who were watching, and the fact that he wouldn't disavow white supremacy and anything else that all these other fascist ideas that he spouts. I don't know.
John Fauci is on stack.
Okay, John.
Hi.
I think I saw another hand up too, but now, okay.
This may have been spoken of before. In fact, the speaker before last, I think Michael mentioned that some of the chaos that is being created, particularly by the Republicans. They have behind that a whole legal troop of people in the key states to take advantage of that, particularly in the states that have Republican legislatures. And this has been done in elections before. The confusion could lead to more than one slate of electors going to the Congress on the first Monday after the second Wednesday, December 14th. If they can confuse the situation enough that neither candidate gets a majority of electoral votes, you know where it goes for decision about the presidency. It goes to the United States Congress. This is in the 12th Amendment of the Constitution. And we don't vote by population in the Congress under this. We vote one vote per state. California doesn't have 55 votes in that choice. They have one vote. There are many more states that have Republican legislatures in the Congress.
Actually, it turns out there are 3 more states. They're ahead of us by 3.
Democrat. Pardon?
They're ahead of us by 3 states, and we're working hard to flip those states so that we can take control of that, of the election, if it comes to that.
Okay, but these are people that currently are in control of the state legislatures, and they could send their own slate to the Congress.
No, I think it's the people
You
who
could even
are
win the
elected.
popular vote and the electoral vote and still lose the election at Trump.
Well, it's going to be the people who are in charge of the state after the election in November. It's not the people who are in charge right now. Why we need to flip
so,
seats.
but they're doing it very deliberately to confuse the issue
enough
that the Republican state legislatures can send a false electoral slate to the Congress. And there might be 2 slates sent. That's in 1824 and 1876. There have been disputed elections before this, and the wrong person gets elected. And we've got to be careful that we understand their strategy and counter it. That means the money put, just like they're putting money into those select states and the legal cases brought before them. Now, if there were 25 and 25 votes in the Congress, then there might be a case that goes to the Supreme Court. And 6-3 is no easy way for Biden to win there.
Thank you. Yes. Dr. Bill, you haven't said anything.
There's a stack, Dorothy. Mike Workman was
Stack,
next.
okay, I don't see the stack. Is it in the chat or something? Because
Yes.
nobody's got their hand right. Okay. Oh,
Mike Workman.
All right.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate people's comments, and I want to add a quick caution and a quick concern. The caution is we've got to remember that there are 51 sets of election laws, and terminology does not go to all 51 states. You have to focus on the terminology in your state, and the system's 1 million ballots are already in the can, and we just got to make sure that in each state, the election laws that are in place are fairly administered and go. I'm going to repeat in the chat here. Biden campaign doesn't have storefronts. They have 51 virtual campaigns. Each state has its own Facebook group. Please consider joining there and focusing a lot of your state-specific concerns in the Joe for Oklahoma, Joe for New York, everyone. Some of the battleground states are extremely active, and I highly encourage you to look at the Joe for your state Facebook group and consider that. We've got just a little over 30 days. We've got to win it. Votes cast no later than November 3rd, no matter when they're counted and how they're counted. We've got to get this election to go blue.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, is there anybody else on the stack? Because we're getting late and we were going to try to cut this off at 9.
Yeah, Timothy Bruning just put his hand up, but then you were going to call Dr. Bill. So do Timothy Bruning first, and then Dr. Bill.
So how do we contact Joe Biden with our ideas? I've seen several people say they wanted us to send ideas to Biden.
Your sound is not really clear, Timothy.
Oh, how do we contact Joe Biden with our ideas?
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Bill, do you want to say a few words before we sign off?
Well, sure. Thanks for calling on me. I think that everybody said what I would say, and so thank you all for engaging and bringing up all these excellent points, especially as well in the chat. And I did mention in the chat that I think that it was a pretty low bar for Joe Biden because we're all faced with the existential threats of climate, of health, of poverty, of race. So all Biden had to do was to express that he's aware of those things and intends to move the country in that direction. And I think he did that. And, you know, he didn't have to, you know, although it might have been better if he appeared very forceful in his mannerism. And we all wish that he had been probably more forceful. But I think he very clearly, you know, offers a vision for the country that allows people to make their decisions. So, so it might not have been motivating for some, perhaps some progressives, but I think for the vast majority of us, it was. And so I'm chalking it up as a win to Biden, and I'm ready to go on to the next one.
All right, well, that's a happy note to end on, so I'm really glad I called on you. And I want to thank everybody who stuck around to the end. We lost some people, but we had a very good crowd, so we're going to be doing this again next time. I know some of the panelists will be back. We will probably have Ted Lieu with us, and he's going to tell us what, you know, he'll give us his opinion of the next debate. And hopefully our panelists will return. I think we had great people, and maybe Mimi Kennedy will be here next time, and we'll go from there. So everybody had a good time? This is worth doing? Yeah? All right. All right, so we'll see you all on October 15th.
Oh,
and thank
Friday.
you.
Stay on the call on Friday, Dorothy. That's
Friday,
our big...
yeah. All right, but I'm just talking about our next call, our next debate.
Yeah, but there's a big
Postmortem.
PDA planning meeting on Friday.
Is there going to be an email sent out on that Friday meeting? Of course, lots of them.
Yep, and whoever just asked that question, email me right now at mikefox@pdamerica.org, and I will be happy to get you the secure login, brother.
Okay,
thank you. Thank you, Mike Fox. All right, and
stay healthy.
And thank you, Mike Fowler, for manning the Zoom.
My pleasure.
Job, as always.
And bye, everybody. Good night. Have a good
night.
Whatever
okay.
night, I guess.
See you Friday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.